Well, this week we're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. Just had its premiere in London yesterday, the day before recording episode 97 of Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast. Let's have a look at the trailer.
What is that?
We're facing the greatest evil the world has ever known.
She's executing our people.
This is unlike anything we've ever seen.
What's trying to kill us this time?
Pretty much everything.
The magic is on a whole other level.
We're outmatched. How are we gonna defeat them?
I know what to do. I can ask corpses 5 questions and then they go back to being dead.
Perlamon Tergatis.
Maybe I'm not saying it right.
Yuck.
Wonderful. Were you killed in battle?
Yes.
Great. 4 more questions, right?
Yes.
No. That wasn't for you. Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it. Only answer when I talk to you. Okay?
Yes. Why did you say okay at the end of that? I didn't.
Fantastic. Where's the shovel?
Oh, Pascal. Talking about the 1980s, I spent so much time in the 1980s playing Dungeons & Dragons, one of the original, if not the original, role-playing games. You know, all of those dice that we used to have, 2-sided dice, 10-sided dice, 20-sided dice, good old-fashioned 6-sided dice, D6, we used to call it D6 and D20 and all of that sort of thing. The Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual, and all of those scenarios. And we would spend hours and hours and hours and hours in people's living rooms or in people's bedrooms or sat around people's dining room tables playing Dungeons & Dragons. And here we have a film. Now, I know very little about this film. You've chosen it. And I know you're going to be, I know you're as excited as I am, but I know very little about the film. Now, I have a preconceived idea in my head as to if I was to make a film about Dungeons & Dragons, because my experience of Dungeons & Dragons is that it's a game that we played, and in playing it, we create this fantasy world of orcs and hobbits and wizards and all of that sort of thing. In my head, a film about Dungeons & Dragons would require the film to start off with normal people like you and I sat around a dining room table playing this game and then getting sucked in somehow. Is that what we're going to see, or is it more like we're just going to get thrown straight into a Lord of the Rings style world?
The latter, and happily so. You know, what others have called the Jumanji curse, because I think it's asking too much of an audience to be into different worlds, and because we have so much to cover in marketing, I'm going to keep my answers very, very short. But what I will say is, so you and I have heard about the movie being in production, as I mentioned, when we began the recording this episode, since the summer 2021. In the middle of the pandemic, you and I saw news. Well, 2 things were happening. Closer to you, in Barbara Castle, they were filming the next Indiana Jones movie.
Yep.
And further south, closer to me, in Annie Castle, they were filming Dungeons and Dragons. And I nearly fell off my chair. But then, since then, I've spent pretty much the last 2 years torn between anguish at a disaster of a movie and, of course, you know, the real desire to have a wonderful time, because Dungeons and Dragons is an adventure movie whereby my memory is laughing and laughing and laughing with my friends, because ultimately it's all about solving riddles. It's all about a heist into a dungeon or a cave where you make the best laid plans, but of course at the roll of a d20 everything can go very, very wrong, and then chaos ensues. And so I was thinking, well, are we going to have, sadly, like, there's been 3 attempts to date at making official Dungeons and Dragons movies, and they've not been particularly successful because essentially people don't know about them. And the reason for that is they are far, far too serious. And the experience of playing the game, whether it's family, friends, and that kind of things, is literally a truly joyous moment when you immerse yourself in the world of storytelling, a world of fantasy, of course, and you can enact, the characters you've chosen to do and so on. And it's been around as part of popular culture since the mid-70s. It peaked in the early 80s, which is where you and I picked it up, really, edition 2, and has carried on ever since. It's on the 6th edition now as a game. But of course, role-playing games will exist for all franchises, including James Bond. You can be a werewolf fighting vampires. You can do anything that essentially your imagination would allow you to do. So filmmaking should be a good kind of medium for that. But to date, it's never worked. Perhaps this is the one.
Perhaps this is the one. Now, I would absolutely agree with you. I mean, I'm just thinking back now, and it was making me smile. There are a number of occasions I remember playing D&D or RuneQuest or something like that, which was similar, where we were absolutely wetting ourselves with hysteria. I remember there was one time, and I can't even remember what had happened and what the joke was or what somebody did. Something funny happened as a result of a dice being thrown. And I was quite literally doubled up in pain because I was laughing so much. We were, and yeah, if those original iterations of the film failed because they didn't embrace the humor, then hopefully that is why this film might succeed, because I know from the trailer and also from the reviews that I've read so far that the humor is there.
The humor is there, and the feedback has been absolutely amazing, much to my relief. So I think for me, from a marketing point of view, they had a very, very interesting challenge. They had to, on one hand, appease D&D fans like you and I, but they had to then appeal to non-gamers, people who, just essentially didn't really engage with that particular leisure activity. And easier said than done, I reckon, and I can't wait to study with you what they've been up to. So because, of course, of the gift of the internet, we were able to access a lot of information. I felt like I was holding literally a bag of holdings for all D&D players, where I kept putting my hand in, and each time I could retrieve, some amazing information. So we're very lucky because it just started, so we have access to official websites. Yay! I was able to compare the US international website to the UK to the French one. Interestingly, all websites seem to be managed and created by a company called Powster, based in London and Los Angeles, and this looks to me like a UK company. So perhaps, not to you and I, to maybe invite them one day to talk about, what it takes, and then. Yeah, of course, all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and the occasional Snapchat as well. So because of the sheer volume of information, I gave myself the brief to only, sadly, because of time constraint, look at the international campaign of Dungeons and Dragons. We may on occasion make references we've done with the premiere in London of what's been happening in all the past, but just as a learning point with regard to this campaign, all 3 websites had a different look and feel, interestingly, even though the platform was very different. They had their own kind of hashtag, a very easy one, hashtag D&D movie, which then auto-generated a little kind of emoji of a mimic. If you don't know what the mimic is, you have to go and see the film and enjoy what that is. But it all began once, as in the official kind of endeavors outside of the media covering the making of, it all began really for all of us internationally on 21st of April, 2022, with the title announcement. So it was a very, very short video whereby, you had a bit of music and a bit of ambience, and the Dungeons and Dragons official logo appeared, and then the title, Honor Among Thieves, appeared. Something that we've seen done with Rings of Power and a few other TV series. And the kind of caption, if you will, was "Our campaign begins." And I thought it was lovely because, of course, that's what the campaign is going to be all about. You could either see it as a D&D campaign, or as a marketing campaign, which I thought was just a lovely little touch.
No, that's that. I mean, again, that's I probably haven't even thought of a D&D campaign until just then, but that's what we used to call them. The dungeon master who who runs the game creates a campaign, doesn't it? It's Rick Nettleton's campaign. Yeah, love it. That's a fabulous play on words, Pascal.
No problem. So then you can tell us about the next teaser that came up a bit later.
Yeah, now this was July, the 21st of July, 2022, and teaser poster, very, very stylish. Basically, you've got this dragon motif, fire-breathing dragon motif, and then the shadows, the sort of silhouettes of the five protagonists, the five thieves, I guess, and that's it pretty much. The names of the stars. Obviously, Chris Pine is the one that everybody will recognise as the guy who played Jim Kirk in the Star Trek revival films, but of course Hugh Grant's in this as well. Now, this I was going to say you always associate Hugh Grant in either one of two roles, don't you? He's either the sort of romantic rom-com type, Four Weddings and a Funeral, or Notting Hill, or Love Actually, that sort of nice bloke gets the girl sort of thing. Or more recently, he started playing very quite scarily villains, isn't he? And his villain acting is actually quite scary. And I know he was in Paddington as a villain as well. So I'm absolutely intrigued to see what he's going to be like in this. But yeah, that poster is very striking, and I would have that on my wall.
Absolutely, and you have the silhouettes, of the main characters. And now fans obviously were saying, well, which one is which? Is Chris Pine this one and this one? But they didn't have to wait too long, because the same day, the first official trailer came out, which I must have watched about 50 times. But I have to say, I did raise an eyebrow, and I was a bit concerned back to this idea of, please don't mess it up, for the fourth time with the use of the Led Zeppelin sound music, a whole lot of love. What did you make of the inclusion of that particular song?
Oh, I don't know. I've never really been a massive Led Zeppelin fan, to be perfectly honest, apart from Stairway to Heaven, which I guess everybody loves. I always think that music has to fit. I only tend to get cross in films when they use music that's anachronistic. So, for example, if you set a film in the 1960s, you can't play 80s music in the film. Now, if you're in a fantasy setting like this, in my head, you should probably not be using any sort of contemporary music, because it would never have played out in that world. But I can see, music makes the world go round. I love music to death, and I probably felt a little bit against this because of Led Zeppelin, and I'm not a Led Zeppelin fan. But I can see that it would appeal to some people. But I think you've got to be very, very careful when you put music into a film like this that is contemporary, when this film isn't really about the world we live in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was hoping for, heroic fantasy soundtrack. I wanted to be taken to the world as I felt with Lord of the Rings and many others. With a few rewatch, and of course, studying the marketing campaign, I said, well, maybe that's when they decided to agree that they had to play to two audiences, the D&D fans and the general public.
Yeah.
I think when you watch it with the montage, the action scene, and the one-liners and so on, I kind of warm to it. But also, I'm now realizing this may be a little Easter egg about a secondary storyline about Chris Pine's character seeking love. So there could be a lot of things there, but I thought it was a brave decision. Because I was even thinking, well, are they trying to suggest that? Because one thing we know from interviews, that the creators have been very respectful of the game, both from its origin all the way to its current iteration. I was thinking, well, if you were a player when it first was launched by TSR in the 70s, perhaps it would have been the music playing in the background in your bedroom, as you were saying, when you're playing with your mates. But take us on to the second poster reveal, please.
Well, the second poster, obviously, you get to see the characters.
Wow.
This is a theme that, for me, is developing over doing more and more of these film marketing segments. I'm really liking campaigns like this, where there's an ensemble cast, and you get that contrast between a poster like this, which features them all. So obviously we've got all the actors we spoke about before. in costume, and it's beautiful colours, and there's images of the worlds in the background as well. Fantastic, absolutely gorgeous, but also like the ability that they can then move on to do individual character posters and individual character spots. And we've seen that so many times in film marketing now, Pascal. Death on the Nile, Lord of the Rings. It's just a great way of marketing and a great way of focusing in on individuals and ensembles at the same time. So that second poster, again, absolutely gorgeous, completely different to the teaser. It's like the teaser almost explodes into this one, doesn't it?
Mm. And I mean, you're right. And there's so much detail that the fan could study, particularly the lower third with the town. Where is it? Is it part of the official kind of storyline? And it is interesting. This is the artwork that is used currently on the French website. Then we had to be a little patient, as fans, because they kept teasing more content. But we had access on the 5th of December to a 2-minute featurette, which is almost thinking, well, we've given people a lot of information, a lot of teaser to avoid almost misunderstanding and to control, rumors. Let's share a bit more about what's been driving us, how we've approached the film, and so on. And I think that was very wise to do so. Where the actors and the creators could talk to camera, and that was pretty much on the same day as well. That's interesting. And I've noticed now they do a poster and a video reveal on the same day. That's what they seem to have done so far.
Yeah, and then the next one is another character poster with all the characters there. Interestingly enough, Chris Pine is playing a lyre or an old-fashioned guitar. He actually looks a bit like he could be in Led Zeppelin, doesn't he? So maybe that's the link there. Actually, just thinking back again, quite a lot of 70s prog rock bands like Led Zeppelin and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis, in their early days, their songs were very much inspired by fantasy. They were very much by Tolkien and stuff. So maybe there's a link there. I don't know.
It's a beautiful one that was used for the international website. And what is interesting, another kind of D&D in-joke, the bard, as a class, was always the one that people hated playing because it was so hard to play.
Yeah.
Because you needed to know enough about music and poetry to really give the character justice. And I do believe that the bard as a class was given like a new lease of life thanks to people like Critical Role and the others who played it well, and it was very amusing. But I think it's interesting that Chris Pine who's I think the lead character with regard to the Band of Thieves. He didn't go for the fighter, didn't go for the paladin, those. He went for the bard. So I think we're going to see a lot of humor in this, because ultimately, apart from charisma and good communication skill, he can't fight, but able to talk his way out of problems.
Pascal, there's just so much stuff here. I know you, as you said, you really enjoyed it, and you went down a rabbit hole digging out all these fabulous visuals. So tell me, we probably haven't got time to go through each one individually, but tell me in a nutshell what you think about all of this stuff that you've discovered.
So to me, it was back to this idea of appeasing the D&D fans and appealing to a wider audience. But we didn't know. And so they carried on with the character reveal. They carried on with the trailers and so on. But the date that really transformed the I suppose, the appeal was the 10th of March, when the world premiere took place at the South by Southwest Film Festival. And the critics went wild. The fans went wild. I could breathe again, because I realize now that we had an amazing movie. And since the 10th of March, it's never stopped now. And they carried on sharing a bit more in terms of what they've done. But more importantly, of course, they had the premieres both in Paris, which was 2 days ago, and London was yesterday. And I guess they're going to have a premiere in the US very, very soon. So listen, what I think we should do now from a learning point of view is talk about how they split the campaign then between the gamers and the non-gamers. So as a summary, in terms of how they got the gamers excited, we would expect that they would do that. It was a year ago, so they're still not revealed. They had a tavern opened at the San Diego Comic-Con. Of course you would, because another D&D in-joke, most adventurers met in a tavern at the start of the game. They had AR/VR filters, for mobile phone. People could pretend to be a paladin. They could pretend to be a barbarian or a bard if they just do so. Of course, they had book prequels, because that is something that we've seen a lot, and there is a great book reading community around D&D. They had live Q&As full of humor and so on. But the one that, of course, they had to do, they released the official character sheets on the D&D Beyond official website. So if you wanted to either meet the characters of the movie as NPCs or play them, you could download the official character sheets and have their scores and have a game. And in a way, that's probably the one thing that they haven't done as part of this campaign for the gamers. They haven't released an official, if you like, scenario that people can play. And they use a number of influencers, of course, throughout, from Critical Role to the nerdies to Screen Rant and so on as well. So the gamers were well looked after, and that was about appeasing them. What did they do, Roger, to attract the general public?
I guess, Pascal, the campaign to the public just focuses more in on the story, more in on the characters, more in on the action, more in on the humours. Obviously, in Super Bowl back in February, there was a 30-second teaser, very exciting, and that's obviously went out to the whole world, massive audience there. But it's the usual sort of let's start working with people. So you've got the early screenings for Amazon Prime US subscribers, going to certain cinemas to see the film. We've got lots of stuff going on Twitter. But the thing that I just wanted to focus on here, and you very kindly, it was a lovely surprise last Saturday to get an email with a link to actually go and see this film. And Trisha and I are going to see Dungeons and Dragons tomorrow, courtesy of yourself. So thank you very much for that. And I'll report back on the next episode what we actually think of the film. But this was in conjunction with Medi Cinema, which is a UK charity, which I know you're very supportive of. And it's a special screening of the film for that charity. So you just tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, to begin with, all proceeds will go to Medi Cinema, who are essentially a charity, independent charity. Patrons are Nick Frost as well as Simon Pegg. And they build and manage cinemas within hospitals with the conviction, which I totally agree, that the world of cinema, movie magic, will make patients, families, and actually staff feel better and recuperate better. And someone who spent a year and a half in the hospital when I was younger with cancer, and we had a TV in our room, which made a whole world of difference. I would assure you, Medi Cinema is very important to me. So whilst I have to wait till the 12th of April, being in France, premieres such as this one with many other brands and charities are happening as we speak. And I'm so pleased that you get to see it tomorrow.
And there's a lot of teasing going on still, isn't there? Even though the film's out, they teased the closing credits song, Wings of Time. Again, that's quite interesting. I love that some other recognisable UK comedians and stars are teasing the film as well. I love this one. Sue Perkins records Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves audio description, and she says, I got very lucky with this dice roll. And again, it's that whole point of campaign, isn't it? And the subtle that works really nicely, because the public wouldn't probably catch on what that means, but here we're saying, it's all about the dice, it's all about D6, D20 and all of that sort of thing. So even with the public campaign focusing, I'm thinking much more on the fact that this is an action movie, this is a fun movie, this is a fantasy movie, but it's got fabulous locations, it's got fabulous characters. It's even the public campaign still has these little hints that it's based upon the game that we loved from the 1980s.
And this amount of respect and love for the game is so apparent. And I think generally you don't have to have played D&D to be able to enjoy this as a family, as a group of friends and so on, because literally I think the acting is going to be spot on. There's going to be, you're going to laugh all the way through as if you were around the table, but also many people have praised the practical special effects. So there's a lot of practical special effects. The decor, maybe so often I have to say I've recognized Annie Castle, so that takes me out of the world a little bit, but that's fine. It's very, very brief. And I think there's going to be surprises, because whilst, with the marketing campaign, the trailers have revealed a hell of a lot, I reckon there's still plenty for people to enjoy. So, for me, when we created Two Geeks and Marketing podcast all those years ago now, and we wanted to bring the 80s and popular culture into the world of marketing and tech and games and movies, but to be in a position now to talk about a D&D movie, that's quite special.
Yeah, it is. And finally, I think I just noticed that, we've got the likes of Mr. Beast promoting this on his YouTube channel. And, we know that Mr. Beast I think he's the biggest YouTuber in the world now. He's got
Correct.
multiple millions of followers. I've not looked at his follow account for a while, but I think the last time I looked at it was north of 12 million. So he is a genuine influencer. So he will, if they're using him to promote the film, and he's been doing some pranks hosted by Mr. Beast. And I also quite like the fact that he's called Mr. Beast, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few beasts in the film as well. And there's a tie-in with Fortnite as well.
Yes.
Actually, I have to say there was an update to Fortnite went through yesterday, but I've not played it yet today. So it'll be interesting to see whether there's any content appeared in the latest update there. So yeah, I am looking forward to seeing this, both from the point of view. Or I think this is interesting that we've looked at this from the point of view of the fans, but also the public.
Yeah.
I'm going to see this film as both tomorrow.
Wow.
So isn't that what will probably happen to you as well? Because there will be the old 1980s gamer part of Pascal Fintoni that wants to enjoy this film with that hat on. I
Correct.
played this game when I was growing up. I still play this game now in the modern world. But you'll also just want to go to the cinema as a normal person, if that doesn't sound too insulting, and be entertained purely by a good film. So I think that both of us are going to go to the cinema in two guises, as a D&D player and as a member of the public, which is exactly how this marketing campaign has been framed.
Superb. Thank you very much, Roger.
Well, that was another absolutely action-packed episode. We've covered so much ground today and so much really good content. I've really enjoyed going through that, and as we've said, can't wait to see that film tomorrow, and I will report back. Thank you everybody for watching Two Geeks and a Marketing Podcast, episode 97. Thank you also if you were listening to the show. We really do appreciate it. We'd love your feedback as well, and you can leave us feedback by putting a comment on the YouTube channel. You can talk to us on Twitter. You can even leave us a message on SpeakPipe. So until the next episode, thank you all so much once again. Go out there, make sure that your marketing is done right. I was Roger Edwards and he was Pascal Fintoni.